Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you're all having a beautiful day full of joy and peace wherever you may be geographically and in life at this current moment. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ria, and in all transparency, I am way too complex of a human to describe in one opening sentence. Clearly, honesty is one of the most important values I think a person could have, both honesty with self internally and just as much, if not more, truthfulness about who you are or desire to be in this world, regardless if it comes naturally or feels terrifying in the face of all the opposition and judgment that you may face. This first video will certainly be different from all of the ones to follow. I've created a summary of many moments that I have captured personally throughout the last 10 years. Some of you may have seen them on my social media at one point or another, and some of you may have not. For those of you who have, I am sure that at the time I made it seem like my life was perfect because for a while I lived through external validation. I struggled so deeply to find joy within myself that a few likes and comments would serve as a pick-me-up. All of that to say that the things we see on social media are not always the way they seem, and if they are not always sustainable because the motions of life simply do not permit permanence. It is rather about learning how to get back to the equilibrium between our mind, body, and spirit to once again create peace for ourselves, or as they say, heaven on earth. So, my life was never perfect, and frankly, I don't think that anybody's ever will be. And this video is a perfect example of our ability to mask what we are truly going through and to create a giant lie that becomes our truth with time, to the point of being so lost in who we are at our core and what we were seeking to begin with. Our human nature often tends to suppress the darkness with a desire to attain a light way of being, but it simply does not work that way. You can only receive the blessings that are equal to the depths that you have gone to in order to experience complete and utter chaos, only to face it with courage and come out as a better and stronger version of yourself. Ultimately, it is precisely balance that is required of us to master in this human life because everything all around consists of a dual nature. It truly is just one simple choice keeping us apart from everything we desire, and at the core of it lies the decision as to whether we are more comfortable existing in a half-truth or brave enough to face it all with faith that it will all be worth it at the end. I suppose we're getting right into it already, so let me backtrack a little and give you all a bit of an overview of my life. My encounters with this world that is so out of balance, my conclusions that led me to hidden truths, both of which ultimately made me the person that I am today. Now, I come from a very small country in Eastern Europe called Bulgaria. Truly, it is so small that the population of the city I currently live in is as large as my entire home country's population. That being said, you could only imagine the societal and cultural shock I experienced when being forced to immigrate here at the age of 13. Prior to that, I had a pretty traumatizing childhood growing up in a country that knew no boundaries, was uneducated on mental health, and really any consequences that our individual behaviors had on our environment, loved ones, and sooner or later on our future. It was the best combination of mental and physical abuse, constant judgment, and endless misunderstandings in every relationship I was a part of or witnessed in my surrounding environment. My parents didn't have an easy life either, so I learned at a very young age to expedite my growth as a human so that I didn't have to be yet another burden that weighted them down. As I matured, I learned that the trauma precisely was what was responsible for unlocking the potential within my DNA. So I made a conscious choice to keep exposing the deepest of layers of my subconsciousness in order to understand who I am better and, well, have helpful advice for others I met later in life that were undergoing similar motions of life. So, this podcast and sharing my knowledge with the world is why I have chosen to overcome the final internal and external obstacles that I have been avoiding for a very long time. I finally found a sustainable way to feel confident enough to believe that what I have to share will surely be of value to the world, even if that means a couple of people that needed confirmation it will all be okay, because honestly, I have come to the conclusion that it always is. The main objective of Wisely Wired is to serve with a perspective based on so much, maybe even too much experience for my age, connect with like-minded individuals, and maybe even get over my fears once and for all. It has been made abundantly clear to me that this is what's required of me in order to move forward in life in ways that have been so obviously divinely preordained and that I have tried so stubbornly to ignore. But here I am today, faced with my biggest fears and therefore the biggest times of upcoming growth. I am truly overjoyed that I have gotten to this point of sharing with you all the journey of navigating life in the most authentic way. I hope that you will enjoy both the good, as it will bring you hope, and the bad, as it will lead you to your own conclusions about life. Throughout the next months, we will get into more depth about the concept of structured beliefs, and therefore the core of it all, human emotion, what it is, where it comes from, and why we fall victim to the negative aspect of emotion more often than not and fail to make the sometimes difficult choices that will lead us to what we ultimately desire: peace, joy, love, comfort. It is all very subjective. I would love to tell you that it's simple, but it took me many years to wrap my head around their complex nature. But I promise you that once you truly understand and internalize the information about who you are at your core, and you do that with radical honesty, it will suddenly seem like it was simpler than you thought all along. Since I made a promise to myself and you guys to be entirely honest about who I am, or in another sense, how I have come to redefine my true self, I will share a few experiences that completely altered my perception early on in life. First off, I want to emphasize on the fact that who you are, once you begin to peel off the layers of your consciousness, is entirely different from who you thought you were. For the lack of a better analogy, we're like onions. Now, I know that it sounds funny, but when I think of it, it actually is the perfect analogy, since most times we're the ones responsible for the pain and suffering we have undergone and they're now subconsciously projecting onto others due to unhealed trauma. So, unless you have consciously chosen to start over in your identity, you are currently living as an individual that was carefully curated by parents, friends, teachers, and the overall system that was established. Your beliefs are people's personal truths that were imposed on you way before you had any discernment to choose whether or not they were aligned with who you are. Do you still experience internal conflict between what you desire in your soul and what you feel you have to do in order to attain that subjective definition of contentment? If so, then I can say with confidence that you have come to the right place. I have spent the last 7 years of my life learning how to undo all the damage that was done unto me by society and discover my authenticity once again for a more peaceful life. And it really is possible to have it all. We simply have been programmed to think that we live in a world of this or that, but it is yet another choice of ours to go along with that delusional statement that is not our reality or how we were meant to exist in the least bit. Truly, the internal conflict we all have felt at one point or another is a battle between intuition and logic, between purpose and societal expectations. In regards to what we have covered so far, I want to share a fun fact with you about the system that has made you continuously hit your head against the wall, wondering what your purpose here is. A while ago, NASA conducted a famous study on the creative genius of humans to measure how creative we remain over the years of getting quote-unquote educated. The scientists gathered a group of children as young as the age of 5 and studied their personality throughout their lives. As they continuously measured the IQ and EQ of the chosen subjects into their adulthood, they came to find that the number of 5-year-old children who fell into the quote-unquote genius category of imagination, which was 98%, and then had dropped to 12% for 15-year-olds, and lastly to 2% for adults. This may be a bold statement about the education system, but it is based on facts. What it's doing to our brains, our sheer capacity to imagine, stay curious, and be creative is shocking to say the least, and our future children are up next, so do with that as you will. The above study goes to show how valuable time is. And time is a quite fascinating concept that used to be terrifying to me, but I now find, dare I say, funny. It certainly takes a while to wrap one's head around the fact that time is actually a construct on this planet that does not exist elsewhere. That being said, you are able to manipulate it to your advantage once you internalize the comprehension of the concept. A simple example would be dogs. Why is it that 1 year of their life is equal to 7 of ours, while our days seem to slip by us while we desperately try to grip control and gasp for air in the chaos of time? It is as simple as the fact that they are entirely present every single day with their surrounding environment. If we were to do the same, which is nearly impossible in this era of technology, we could just as easily slow time down and ultimately find peace in the fact that we are able to do everything we desire each and every day. Sadly, most of humans spend majority of their time dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. But let me ask you this, if time doesn't exist and you are stuck in the past or future dimensions, are you even giving yourself and your potential the chance to exist? All that exists stems from the present, as did the past that you are dwelling on at some point, as will the future from this current moment you are watching this. We are merely but specks of dust in all that there is, and if we desire to leave a sustainable print of our existence, we must learn how to simply exist first rather than chasing the tomorrow of each today. Now, a little bit about me. This may sound silly, but I thank my trauma and hallucinogenic mushrooms for the universal perspective I am now able to take upon this world. When I was 17, I was having fun with some friends, and I took a double hero dose, naturally wanting to be the hero of the group before I had dissolved my ego entirely. Boy, was I in for a rude awakening. My soul got blasted out of my body, and I spent the entire night traveling to different dimensions. At the time, I quite literally was convinced that I was dying. After I realized that I am indeed alive and was able to survive this unknown experience, I spent the next months shutting the world out, not knowing what is reality and what is not, and truly not knowing whom I can trust with the information that was poured into my consciousness. My initial research into the depths of the universe started with Nikola Tesla and Marco Rodin, as those were names that were given to me during my shroom trip, and they were able to explain my experience through science. After I discovered how time and space work outside of this human body that we are trapped in, I realized that I was programmed to forget that I always knew. With time, my memories had been so deeply suppressed that I simply thought I was here to study, work, procreate, and well, eventually die. But my perception was forever altered by this one experience. I kept searching for ways in which I could explain to myself and others around me what it was that was truly going on beyond our world. With time, I learned that everybody has an individual path, and I can't forcefully wake people up to the truth. I took a step back and continued to embark on my personal journey. I later came across a tiny old book called The Four Agreements, which I am sure many of you now know, but the concept of the smoky mirror resonated with me so much that I started to observe the world and see it as my new reality. For those of you who have not read the book, it practically talks about how you may have come to see reality for what it truly is, and when you do that, you start to see truth more clearly. You become painfully honest with yourself about your flaws and where you can be better, and therefore that reflects onto your 3D reality, meaning people start to feel very transparent to read, as you now know that you are part of them as they are a part of you. But if they have not gone to that depth within themselves, 99% of the time you will be met with opposition because they don't want to recognize your soul but rather focus on the external aspects of you, which creates a wall, aka the smoky mirror. Mirror because we're all subconsciously mirroring each other's perspectives of this 3D reality, and smoky because that perception is blurred for people that have not entirely let go of ego. At that point, I internalized the fact that I could only be understood by others that also had discovered that they are indeed one with everything. This concept helped me get through being misunderstood so often by helping me realize that nothing is personal. And I found myself at a crossroad yet again, seeking any and all information that would help me navigate this new life I was living. I felt like a child again, having so many questions about who I am, what this place is, and how it all works. I started off with Kundalini Yoga. I studied every single religion looking for answers, but I was way too traumatized by how it had been weaponized against society to truly internalize any of the information. So I moved on to the occult, started reading tarot cards, tapping into white witchcraft, working with scripting and manifestation, ancient Buddhist practices, Qigong, Tai Chi, you name it. I would go through phases so quickly because all of them resonated in some way, but none of them brought me the peace and comfort I was seeking. After doing extensive studies on the world, the underworld, and the system, I have come to realize that there is truth in everything. For what is the best way to keep the entire and only truth away from humanity? To put different pieces in the hands of people that will never get along due to centuries-long segregation of race, language, and religion. Throughout the entirety of time, I wanted to control my reality so badly because truth is, I was terrified of what I may find out, but I kept pushing forward with the intuitive knowing that if I am able to discover the full, real truth, it could help so many other individuals get out of the endless limbo of being human. About a year ago, I found my way back to a relationship with God. I know, quite contradicting to what I said above, but again, I tried everything, and when it all felt too much, I felt I had no other choice than to just get down on my knees and yell at whatever God there is for putting me through so much hardship. To my surprise, he answered. I was in shock, but I decided to get to know who he was better, and my life has simply not been the same since. It's not that I have changed who I am as a person, but rather I found the missing piece I spent 6 years seeking. It all clicked suddenly. Everything was done for me and not to me. Had I not gone through what I had to, I would have never been as open-minded to finding truth in all different aspects of life. Now, the reason my relationship with God out of all things had the biggest impact on me is because I was finally able to let go of the tight grip I previously had on life. It's as if I could breathe again. I stopped worrying as much, I stopped acting out of lack, desire, or insecurity, and I just felt like me again, simply existing in joy, peace, and love for the world. I will say this though, manifestation does work, but in our desire for something specific and in our attaining thereof, we fail to realize that sometimes we simply lack the experience and the ability to perceive things universally in order to know what it is that is truly best for us. You will always receive what you ask for, but have you thought about the price that you are going to pay? I certainly had not, and while I received all of the things that I had demanded, twice as more was taken from me. Ironically, when I let go of control, what was truly meant for me arrived in little to no time with less if even any resistance. Similarly, what was not meant for me fell out with ease, so it definitely took some time to accept and trust that there was a predetermined plan prior to my own. After about a year of truly walking side by side with God, I came to realize that the plan He had for me always included my soul's deepest desires, plus more as a reward for my trust. It is as simple as that I was known by whom had created me long before I started to even remotely grasp an understanding of myself. So this is quite literally as surface level as I can get with this overview because there is so much more depth to what I am looking forward to sharing with you all, but I think this is a good start. Not too overwhelming, not too broad. Okay, well, kind of broad, but we have to be open in our perspectives and willing to let go of what we try to control as our truth in order to grow and discover how beautifully we're able to exist in alignment with everything and everyone around us. We impose judgment and claim it as truth so often as a society. Simple example is age. To me, age is just a number. I have met people with childish behavior in the bodies of 50-year-olds, and as contrast, I have spoken with children at the age of 10 who are wise beyond my human comprehension. There are simply so many aspects that define the speed of our growth, but we often fail to take advantage of the help and information provided to us due to ego and putting ourselves and our knowledge on a pedestal, thus ridding ourselves of the opportunity to learn more. Lastly, I am a sole believer that there is no such thing as your truth and my truth. There is a difference in perception of our environment and the people in it, but there is always one and only truth. That may be hurtful to hear, and honestly, if you are easily offended, I do not recommend sticking around. As I mentioned before, we're all connected on a much deeper level, and people that have reached that depth with self almost always share the same perspective of truth because they have entirely let go of ego. Mine and yours is simply a human way of defending one's faulty perception because we're so afraid that the truth will shake up our reality a bit too much beyond our comfort zone. Now, in terms of religion, I have come to believe that it is solely about one's personal relationship with God. The more you nurture it, the more you ultimately nurture yourself. There are good people that focus on that in privacy, and there are bad people that go to church every Sunday to convince themselves otherwise, yet still make hurtful choices for themselves and others. After this realization, I didn't stop. I kept going, and I wanted to understand more. It's as if every time a door opened, there was 10 more behind it to choose from, and in a way, that's a summary of how my life has been so far. Pieces started to fall into my lap quicker than before. I suppose it was due to my lack of fear and desire to know more, and I will be sure to share every single one of them, from Christianity to Buddhism to the Mayan history, dating all the way back to ancient Egyptian and Babylonian knowledge. It is all connected. It's just that our civilizations have been destroyed each time we got a little bit too close to the truth by the people that didn't want us to exist in our full potential. I plan to stay a tad cryptic with what I have discovered because I am well aware that truth is beneficial but just as dangerous to the people that discover it. Well, I hope that there was a little bit of something for everyone listening in to relate to. I have desired to share my knowledge with the world for so long, but I spent most of my life being held back by fear of perception, fear of conflict, and mostly fear of success because it has been such a foreign concept to me and all generations from my bloodline that preceded me. But I feel I am ready now in the name of helping others discover the peace that I have, the peace that I didn't think existed in this broken world, but I have proved myself wrong, and it does. It is within and all around if we just choose to see it and exist as a part of it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Next week, I will be sharing a genealogy of the first episodes I ever recorded 3 months ago while traveling. Yes, I spent 3 months waiting for the perfect time just to come to the conclusion that I have simply wasted time because it never is comfortable to face your fears. I welcome you to observe the difference in confidence and internal peace between then and now. I have worked through so much since then that it is almost uncomfortable seeing myself knowing the internal battles I was facing at the time and masking so well. I tell you this because I want you to understand that we're barely the same people as yesterday, never mind the same as last week or even a month ago. If you feel stagnant, you are choosing to live your life in your comfort zone, and one thing we all know about that place is that dreams go there to die. Each choice we make is followed by a series of consequences. From Latin, consequence means a sequence of events. So on a positive note, if you are currently living a life that does not feel right for you, you are just one different choice away from beginning a new sequence of life events for yourself, as thankfully, the free will and duality of this world always permit change. It is typically us that are standing in our own way. So I invite you to truly think about it until the next time that we see each other. Wishing everybody a week full of blessings, opportunities, and joy found in every simple moment. Because if you pay attention, there is always something that can make you smile every single moment of every single day and every step of your way. And remember, now is the most perfect time regardless of your circumstances.